The emergency meeting hall of the Galactic Council buzzed with nervous energy. Representatives from 12 different species sat around the massive circular table, their various forms of communication creating a symphony of clicks, chirps, and electronic pulses. Ambassador Crix of the Altarian Federation stood at the center, his blue skin pale with worry. "The situation is worse than we thought," he announced, his voice carrying across the chamber through universal translators. "The Void Hunters have taken the Epsilon sector. 3 entire star systems have gone dark." A collective shudder ran through the assembly. The Void Hunters were known throughout the galaxy as destroyers, a species that consumed entire worlds, leaving nothing but empty space in their wake. They had appeared from the dark reaches of the galaxy 6 months ago, and their advance seemed unstoppable. "What about the Nexus Defense Fleet?" asked General Voss, the military commander of the Centauri Alliance. His reptilian features were etched with concern. "Destroyed," Crix replied grimly. "All 47 ships. The Hunters' technology is beyond anything we've encountered. Their ships phase in and out of reality, making them nearly impossible to target. Our weapons pass right through them." The room fell silent. The Nexus Defense Fleet had been the galaxy's strongest military force, composed of ships from 6 different civilizations. If they couldn't stop the Void Hunters, what hope did anyone have? "There must be something we can do," pleaded Dr. Yara, the chief scientist of the Botanical Collective. Her plant-like appendages rustled with agitation. "Some weakness we haven't found yet." Crix's expression grew darker. "There is one option, one we've all avoided discussing." Every eye in the room turned to him. They knew what he was about to say. "The humans," he continued reluctantly. "They're the only ones who haven't faced the Void Hunters yet. Their territory is on the opposite side of the galaxy." A wave of uncomfortable murmurs swept through the chamber. The humans were known throughout the galaxy, but not in the way most species preferred to be known. They were the newcomers, the violent ones, the species that had somehow jumped from primitive chemical rockets to faster-than-light travel in less than a century. "You can't be serious," scoffed Commander Thale of the Crystalline Dominion. His crystal-like body pulsed with disbelief. "The humans are barbarians. They still fight wars among themselves. They're not even a unified species. They're also the only ones who've never lost a battle," Crix pointed out quietly. This was true, though most of the Council preferred not to think about it. In the 50 years since humanity had joined the galactic community, they had been involved in dozens of conflicts. Pirates, territorial disputes, trade wars, and the humans had won every single one. Not through superior technology or overwhelming numbers, but through what other species considered to be insane tactics and reckless courage. "Their ships are primitive," argued General Voss. "Projectile weapons, chemical explosives, nuclear missiles. We've moved beyond such crude methods centuries ago. And yet our advanced energy weapons can't touch the Void Hunters," Crix reminded him. "Perhaps crude is what we need." The debate continued for hours. Some species refused to even consider asking humans for help. The Ethereal Collective found human thoughts too chaotic to comprehend. The hive minds couldn't understand how a species could function without perfect unity. The peaceful worlds were horrified by human military doctrine, but as reports continued to arrive of more systems falling to the Void Hunters, desperation began to outweigh prejudice. "They won't come," said Ambassador Zinn of the Merchant Guild. "Why would they risk their fleets for us? We've never exactly welcomed them into our circles." "Because they're human," Crix replied with a bitter laugh. "They have this insane compulsion to fight against impossible odds. They call it justice or protecting the innocent. The more hopeless the situation, the more likely they are to charge straight into it." The vote was close, but eventually passed. The Galactic Council would officially request military aid from the Human Federation. As the meeting ended and representatives began filing out, Crix remained behind, staring at the star map that dominated one wall. Red markers showed the advance of the Void Hunters, a spreading cancer of destruction moving inexorably toward the galaxy's core. He activated his communicator and composed the message that would either save the galaxy or doom it to witness humanity's first military defeat. To the Human Federation, he began. The Galactic Council formally requests your assistance in a matter of galactic security. Little did he know that across the galaxy, Admiral Jack Morrison was already preparing the Third Fleet for deployment. The humans had been monitoring the situation for weeks, waiting for someone to ask for help. The message from the Galactic Council reached Earth's capital on Luna City at 800 hours, Galactic Standard Time. Within minutes, it was on the desk of Fleet Admiral Sarah Chen, the highest-ranking military officer in the Human Federation. Admiral Chen read the message twice, then leaned back in her chair with a grim smile. She had been expecting this call for weeks. The Human Intelligence Division had been tracking the Void Hunter advance since it began, and their analyst had predicted the Council would eventually swallow their pride and ask for help. "Get me Admiral Morrison," she ordered her aide. The holographic display flickered to life, showing the weathered face of Jack Morrison, commander of the Third Fleet. He was aboard his flagship, the UFS Indomitable, somewhere in the Outer Rim. "I'm guessing you've seen the reports," Chen said without preamble. Morrison nodded. "My intel boys have been keeping me updated. The Void Hunters are nasty pieces of work. Phase shift technology, energy absorption capabilities, some kind of reality, manipulation. The Council's forces don't stand a chance with their traditional tactics. But we might." "We might," Morrison agreed. "We've been developing some new toys specifically for enemies like this. Project Sledgehammer has been waiting for a field test." Chen raised an eyebrow. She had heard whispers about Project Sledgehammer, but the details were classified above her level. "Care to elaborate?" "Simple concept," Morrison said with a predatory grin. "If you can't hit something because it's not entirely in our reality, you don't aim for where it is. You aim for where it has to be." Before Chen could ask for clarification, Morrison continued. "The physics boys figured out that even phase-shifted, matter has to maintain some connection to normal space-time or it couldn't interact with our universe at all. Find that connection point and you can hurt it. And you've weaponized this theory?" "We've weaponized everything, Admiral. Kinetic penetrators that punch through dimensional barriers, fusion bombs that detonate in phase space, even gravity weapons that can yank something back into normal reality, whether it wants to be there or not." Chen felt a familiar surge of pride in human ingenuity. While other species had spent centuries perfecting energy weapons and defensive shields, humans had taken a different approach. They had looked at the fundamental forces of the universe and asked, "How can we use this to break things?" "How long do you need to reach the combat zone?" Chen asked. Morrison consulted his tactical display. "The Void Hunters are currently engaged with the remnants of the Nexus defense fleet in the Rigel system. If we push the engines hard, we can be there in 18 hours. "Take the entire Third Fleet," Chen ordered. "And Jack, the whole galaxy, is watching. Try not to make us look bad." Morrison's grin widened. "Ma'am, when have we ever made humanity look bad?" As the connection ended, Chen activated the fleet-wide communication system. Across human space, from the industrial worlds of the inner colonies to the frontier outposts of the Rim, the call went out. The Third Fleet was going to war. Within hours, the response was overwhelming. The Human Federation had a volunteer military, but when the call came for volunteers to face an enemy that had destroyed entire star systems, the recruitment centers were flooded. Young men and women from every human world wanted to be part of the fleet that would face the Void Hunters. "It's like nothing I've ever seen," reported Commander Lisa Park from the recruitment center on New Tokyo. "We've got farmers, engineers, college students, even some veterans from the pirate wars coming out of retirement. Everyone wants to fight." The preparation was frantic but efficient. Human military doctrine emphasized rapid deployment and overwhelming force. While other species spent weeks planning and coordinating, humans loaded their ships with ammunition, fuel, and determination. The Third Fleet was impressive by any standard. 57 ships ranging from massive dreadnoughts to fast attack corvettes. The human fleet looked primitive compared to the sleek, elegant vessels of other species, but there was something undeniably menacing about their angular, weapon-bristling designs. As the fleet prepared to jump to hyperspace, Admiral Morrison stood on the bridge of the Indomitable, looking out at the stars. His tactical officer, Lieutenant Commander Mike Torres, approached with the final readiness report. "All ships report. Ready for jump, sir," Torres reported. "Destination Rigel system." Morrison nodded. "Send a message to the Galactic Council. Tell them the cavalry is coming." He paused, considering his words carefully. The next few hours would determine whether humanity's reputation for military prowess was deserved, or if they were about to face their first defeat. "All ships," he announced over the fleet communication system. "Prepare for hyperspace jump. Time to show the galaxy what humans can do." The Rigel system was dying. What had once been a thriving star system with 3 inhabited worlds and a IDE major trading hub was now a battlefield, strewn with the wreckage of a dozen different fleets. The Void Hunters had been systematically destroying everything in their path for the past 6 hours. Captain Rex Valdez of the Altarian cruiser Starlight watched in horror as another ship, the Centauri battleship Thunderstrike, simply vanished from existence. One moment it was there, firing its plasma cannons at the shifting ethereal forms of the Void Hunter vessels, and the next it was gone, leaving only empty space and a brief flash of light. "Captain, we're down to 12 ships," reported his tactical officer, voice tight with desperation. "The Void Hunters are toying with us. They could finish us any time they want." Valdez knew it was true. The enemy ships moved like ghosts through space, phasing in and out of reality at will. When they were solid, they absorbed energy weapons like sponges. When they were phase-shifted, physical projectiles passed harmlessly through them. It was an impossible enemy to fight. "Sir," his communications officer called out, "I'm receiving a transmission from the Galactic Council. They say human reinforcements are en route." A bitter laugh escaped Valdez's lips. How many humans could possibly make a difference against this? He gestured at the tactical display showing the Void Hunter fleet. 43 ships of unknown design, each one seemingly invincible. Before anyone could answer, space itself seemed to tear open. The hyperspace jump point that materialized was massive, far larger than anything Valdez had ever seen. And through it came the human fleet. The first thing that struck him was the size. 57 ships emerged in perfect formation, their angular, aggressive designs a stark contrast to the flowing curves of most galactic vessels. But it was their behavior that truly amazed him. Most fleets would have taken time to assess the situation, to scan the enemy, and plan their approach. The humans did none of this. The moment they cleared hyperspace, they opened fire. Admiral Morrison stood on the bridge of the Indomitable, watching the tactical display with cold satisfaction. "Target acquisition complete," reported his weapons officer. "All ships have multiple locks." "Fire everything," Morrison ordered simply. What followed was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. The human fleet unleashed a barrage that defied conventional space combat doctrine. Instead of energy weapons, they fired solid projectiles. But these weren't simple kinetic rounds. The first salvo consisted of what humans called phase hunters, specially designed projectiles that could track targets across dimensional boundaries. The Void Hunter ships tried to phase shift to avoid them, but the missiles followed them into whatever reality they fled to. "Direct hits on 7 targets," reported the tactical officer. "The enemy ships they're bleeding." It was true. The Void Hunter vessels, which had seemed invulnerable moments before, were now leaking some kind of dark energy into space. Their perfect phase shifting was disrupted, forcing them to remain in normal space-time. "Second salvo away," called the weapons officer. Gravity bombs armed and targeted. The second wave of human weapons was even more devastating. Instead of trying to destroy the enemy ships directly, the gravity bombs created localized space-time, distortions that yanked the Void Hunters back into normal reality and held them there. "Now they can't run," Morrison said with grim satisfaction. "All ships switch to conventional weapons, show them what human firepower looks like." The human fleet opened up with everything they had. Railguns fired tungsten slugs at a significant fraction of light speed. Fusion missiles detonated in brilliant flashes of artificial starlight. Particle beams carved through enemy hulls like cosmic blowtorches. But it was the psychological impact that was perhaps most devastating. The Void Hunters had grown accustomed to being untouchable, to enemies who couldn't even fight back effectively. Suddenly, they were facing an enemy that not only could hurt them but seemed to have been specifically designed to counter their abilities. Captain Valdez watched in amazement as the tide of battle turned in seconds. The Void Hunter ships, which had seemed like unstoppable forces of nature, were suddenly vulnerable. Several tried to retreat, but the humans were ready for that too. "Pursuit ships, execute intercept pattern Delta," Morrison ordered. "Don't let any of them escape." The smaller human vessels, corvettes and destroyers, broke from the main formation and gave chase. They were faster than the Void Hunter ships and armed with specialized weapons designed for pursuit combat. "Impossible," whispered Valdez's tactical officer. "They're actually winning." Within minutes, the engagement was over. Of the 43 Void Hunter ships that had terrorized the Rigel system, 38 were destroyed and 5 were disabled, and being boarded by human marines. Not a single human ship had been lost. The silence that followed was deafening. The aftermath of the Rigel system battle sent shockwaves throughout the galaxy. News of the human victory spread faster than hyperspace communications, carried by the surviving ships of the Galactic Defense Fleet, who had witnessed the impossible. Admiral Morrison stood in the conference room of the Indomitable, addressing the assembled representatives of the Galactic Council via hologram. The aliens' expressions ranged from amazement to barely concealed fear. "The Void Hunters are not invincible," Morrison stated matter-of-factly. "They rely on their phase-shifting technology to avoid damage, but once you understand the physics behind it, countermeasures are straightforward." Ambassador Crix leaned forward in his chair. "Admiral, how did you know their weaknesses? Our scientists have been studying their technology for months without success." Morrison's expression remained neutral. "We've been studying them too. The difference is we weren't trying to understand their technology. We were trying to destroy it." The distinction was subtle but crucial. While the Galactic Council's scientists had approached the Void Hunters as a puzzle to be solved, humans had approached them as a problem to be eliminated. The difference in methodology had led to very different results. "What are your intentions now?" asked General Voss, the Centauri military commander. "Will you pursue them to their home territory?" Morrison nodded. "We've already begun tracking their retreat. Our intelligence suggests they're falling back to a staging area in the Void sector, approximately 30 light-years from here. We intend to follow them." The holographic representatives exchanged glances. The Void sector was unexplored territory, a region of space that had been considered too dangerous for most species to venture into. Even the Void Hunter's name came from their apparent origin in that dark region. "Admiral," Dr. Yara spoke up, her plant-like features rustling with nervousness. "Perhaps we should consider negotiation. Now that we've demonstrated our capability to resist them, they might be willing to discuss terms." Morrison's expression didn't change, but several of the human officers in the room shifted uncomfortably. Captain Elena Rodriguez, his second-in-command, spoke up. "With respect, Doctor, we've analyzed their behavior patterns. The Void Hunters don't take prisoners, don't leave survivors, and don't negotiate. They're an extinction-level threat to every species in the galaxy." "Then what do you propose?" asked Commander Thale of the Crystalline Dominion. Morrison's response was simple and direct. "We're going to end them." The bluntness of the statement sent a chill through the assembled representatives. This was why many species found humans unsettling. Their willingness to pursue total victory rather than seek compromise. "You mean to commit genocide?" asked Ambassador Zinn, his voice barely above a whisper. "We mean to eliminate a threat to galactic civilization," Morrison replied. "The Void Hunters have already destroyed billions of lives. They've shown no interest in coexistence. This isn't about revenge, it's about survival." The debate that followed was heated, but brief. The Galactic Council was faced with a simple choice: support the human campaign, or risk facing the Void Hunters. Alone when they inevitably regrouped and returned, The vote was unanimous. The humans would have the Council's full support. Over the next several days, the human fleet grew. Ships arrived from across human space, not just military vessels but converted civilian ships, mining platforms armed with industrial equipment, and even scientific vessels equipped with experimental weapons. The diversity of the human response amazed the galactic observers. Unlike other species which relied on centralized military hierarchies, humans seemed to organize themselves spontaneously. Volunteer crews from dozens of different corporations, governments, and organizations all worked together toward a common goal. "It's like watching a hive mind," observed Dr. Yara, "but without the mind." "They call it democracy," explained Ambassador Crix. "Somehow, they achieve coordination without central control." The human fleet that finally departed for the Void Sector was massive, over 200 ships of various sizes and configurations. But it was more than just a military force. It was a manifestation of human culture, diverse, chaotic, and absolutely ruthless when threatened. Admiral Morrison's final message to the Galactic Council was brief. "We'll be back when it's finished." As the human fleet disappeared into hyperspace, the galaxy held its breath. The Void Hunters had been the dominant threat for months, seemingly unstoppable. Now, suddenly, they were running from humans. Captain Valdez, still recovering from his injuries, aboard the Starlight, watched the human fleet depart with mixed feelings. Relief that the threat was being addressed, but also a growing unease. The humans had just demonstrated capabilities that no one had suspected they possessed. "What have we unleashed?" he wondered aloud. His tactical officer, monitoring the long-range sensors, looked up from his console. "Sir, I'm detecting massive energy signatures from the Void Sector. It looks like the humans have found their target." The Void Sector lived up to its name. It was a region of space seemingly empty of stars, planets, or any normal matter. What filled it instead was something far stranger, a network of artificial structures that existed partially outside normal space-time. Admiral Morrison studied the tactical display with growing understanding. "It's not just a base," he said to his assembled command staff. "It's a staging ground for dimensional invasion. They're not from our galaxy at all." The revelation explained much about the Void Hunters' capabilities. They were truly alien, not just another species, but entities from a completely different reality. Their technology wasn't just advanced, it was based on physics that operated by different rules. "Sir," reported Lieutenant Commander Torres, "we're detecting massive energy buildups throughout the sector. It looks like they're preparing for something big." Captain Rodriguez studied the sensor readings. "They're not just retreating, they're preparing to open a permanent gateway. This was never about conquest, it was about invasion." The implications were staggering. The Void Hunters weren't just trying to destroy the galaxy's civilizations. They were preparing to bring their entire species through from whatever dimension they called home. The attacks on the outer systems hadn't been random. They had been designed to weaken the galaxy's defenses for a full-scale dimensional invasion. "How long do we have?" Morrison asked. "Based on the energy patterns, maybe 6 hours," Torres replied. "Once that gateway opens, we could be facing thousands of their ships." Morrison nodded grimly. "Then we end this now. All ships prepare for final assault. Target the dimensional anchors, those structures maintaining the gateways." The human fleet moved into attack formation, but this time they faced a different challenge. The Void Hunters weren't running anymore. They were fighting to protect their invasion infrastructure, and they were using tactics the humans hadn't seen before. Reality itself seemed to bend around the Void Hunter defensive positions. Human weapons that had been effective in previous engagements were absorbed or deflected by barriers that existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously. "They're adapting," reported the weapons officer. "Our phase hunters are only 50% effective now." "Then we adapt too," Morrison replied. "All ships switched to Protocol Omega." Protocol Omega was humanity's ultimate contingency plan, a easy strategy so extreme that it had never been used in actual combat. Instead of trying to fight the Void Hunters on their terms, it involved forcing them to fight on human terms. The human fleet began deploying devices that had been strictly theoretical. Until now, reality stabilizers that locked local spacetime into normal physics. The effect was immediate and dramatic. Suddenly, the Void Hunters couldn't phase shift, couldn't exist partially outside normal space, couldn't use any of their dimensional abilities. "They're trapped in our reality now," Morrison announced to the fleet. "All ships, fire at will." What followed was less a battle than an execution. The Void Hunters, stripped of their dimensional advantages, were helpless against conventional human weapons. Their ships, designed to exist in multiple realities simultaneously, couldn't function properly when locked into normal spacetime. The dimensional gateway structures, enormous constructs that had seemed impregnable moments before, crumbled under sustained bombardment from human heavy weapons. As each anchor point was destroyed, the gateways began to collapse, sealing the pathways between dimensions. "Gateway collapse imminent," reported Torres. "All dimensional anchors destroyed." The final gateway collapsed with a flash of light visible across the entire sector. The Void Hunters' invasion route was sealed, their forward forces destroyed, and their dimensional staging area eliminated. In the sudden silence that followed, Morrison activated the fleet-wide communication system. "All ships, this is Admiral Morrison. The Void Hunter threat has been eliminated. Begin recovery operations." The news reached the Galactic Council within hours. The impossible had been accomplished. Humanity had not only defeated the Void Hunters but had eliminated them entirely as a threat to the galaxy. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Species that had barely acknowledged human existence suddenly wanted to establish diplomatic relations. Trade agreements were offered, territorial concessions were made, and humanity found itself elevated from newcomer to galactic power in a matter of days. But for the humans themselves, the victory was bittersweet. They had saved the galaxy, but they had also revealed capabilities that made other species nervous. The same qualities that made them effective against the Void Hunters. Their adaptability, their ruthlessness, their willingness to use any means necessary, also made them potentially dangerous allies. Admiral Morrison's final report to the Human Federation was simple. "Mission accomplished. The galaxy is safe, but our real challenges may just be beginning." As the human fleet began its journey home, they left behind a changed galaxy. The Void Hunters were gone, but in their place stood humanity, no longer the primitive newcomers, but the species that had done what no one else could do. The galaxy would never be the same. The end.